Well, good evening, everyone. It is 7 p.m. on October 26, 2023, and I'd like to welcome everyone in the room and those participating online as I call to order this meeting of the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Board of Education for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. We value everyone's input and have made sure to dedicate a portion of this meeting to hear from you. We look forward to your comments during that time as indicated on the agenda. Mr. Lyman, will you please call the roll? Mr. Carpenter? Present. Mrs. Dorn? Here. Mr. Kinsey? Present. Mr. Price? Here. Mrs. Anderson? Here. We have a quorum. If you're able, will you please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Quick note, hopefully this can be a team effort. Using the new Board Doc software, this is kind of our first time going solo with that. I'll just get some more information out if we need, but I'm not used to looking at those papers. I'll keep on track. I'm sure I'm going to lose a couple places.
You've never done it.
Yeah, I know, right? It'd be the first time it actually happened for real. Another just quick note, because I know somebody had asked me, with the new Board Doc software, like somebody asked me, is there going to be an executive session tonight? There's not. It's just how the agenda prints out now or how it shows online. Even if there's a section that doesn't have anything planned, that title is still there. So I think Dr. Kozak might look into seeing if we can do something about that just to make it clearer for the future. Okay, so how about we move into the treasurer's report?
Take a good motion to approve the minutes from the meeting held October 12th.
Second.
Mrs. Dorn and then Mrs. Anderson. Questions, corrections? Hearing any, please call the roll.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Take a motion to approve in advance, it's a loan from the general fund to Title 4A federal grant in the amount of $3,154.84.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Anderson moved and Mrs. Dorn seconded.
It's just a timing issue with the federal grant. Spend the money and not receive reimbursement yet from the feds, and you can't end the month in the red, so you have to advance money from general fund. That's what this is. And then you pay back.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. Thorne?
Yes.
Anything else, sir? Okay. Moving into correspondence, if there's anything that any board member would like to share.
Sure, I did get one input from a meeting member on policy revisions we'll be voting on tonight. That's one to close out and he's incorporated some wording based on that input from a community member. So I think
Maybe we can highlight that when we get to that later in the policy section.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so this, for example, just in case you're looking at the agenda, is an example. We do not have any good news recognition tonight, but the heading is there. So let's get past that and move on to number 5, reports to the board. We have some committees of the board, so we're going to work through some of those. I'm going to go first as our OSBA legislative liaison. There's actually been a flurry of activity here in the last few months since folks have come back from recess, the summer recess in Columbus. Lots of stuff getting first and second readings and whatnot. I thought really I just wanted to focus on a couple things that are a little bit further along or some things that might be of interest based on discussions I know we've had or that people have brought to us. The first is House Bill 187. The Ohio House passed House Bill 187. I'm just going to read this. Forgive me, here it goes. House Bill 187 is a bill that would temporarily require the use of a 3-year average for reevaluating property values, including current agricultural use value, CAUV for farmland. This results in real property valuations being based equally on the past 3 years rather than a 3-year look back on sales with an emphasis placed on the most recent year's sales according closest to the tax lien date. Further, House Bill 187 would give county auditors rather than the tax commissioner the final authority regarding the property tax equalization of the county's real property, with the tax commissioner able to appeal to the tax appeals board. Honestly, I mention it because maybe that will help out some people, and maybe that will help out some school districts, I don't know. But bringing up that there's actually a lot of stuff going on in the House that's trying to kind of nibble around the edges of school funding, but nothing that is getting to the root of what we all have talked about ad infinitum about what the real problem is. So, this will not do anything to help our state funding. Up next, just to mention House Bill 266, this one just caught my eye, sponsored by Representative Scott Wiggum. It is a bill that has not passed, but it would require school districts and schools to update emergency management plans to include evacuation procedures for individuals with disabilities. I'm curious, I'm not positive about all of our emergency management plans, if that's just something we can look into. If we don't do, we could do something to throw that out there for the discussion.
Yeah, we have the building level that obviously they're planning for their evacuation plans or anything emergency. They're taking into account those folks, the students that maybe need a little extra help, need a little time, those kind of work.
I strongly suspected that, and I was just kind of shocked to read that bill. Anyway, go ahead. I agree, man. I was like, how is that not required by everybody? I'm sure we're doing a great job, and I appreciate it. Two things that are in the House Transportation Committee. There's been sponsored testimony on House Bill 279. This would require, if passed, occupant restraining devices, I assume that means seatbelts, to be installed on all school buses within 5 years. There's also sponsored testimony on House Bill 140, which would increase penalties for passing a school bus. I know that's something we talked about in the past and are trying to mitigate through this, so something you might be interested in. Okay, that's all I have as a legislative update. Questions or anything? All right, so we will move on to Mr. Carpenter as the OSBA Capital Conference Liaison.
Each year in November, Ohio School Board Association, the OSBA, has a conference that is mostly geared toward education for school board members. And in my role, I get to go to the business meeting, which has to do with the platforms that the OSBA will support for lobbying for school districts. So we'll get a packet of the current positions for the platform and a briefing early in November before the conference on the second weekend of November. I believe most of our members are going to be going to the OSBA conference, or at least part of the time. And I'm glad to see that. That's something that gives us regular education, regular training on serving well as school board members and understanding legal changes that have taken place and current trends that we may want to be attentive to with policy. So we'll be attending that in a couple weeks, or more like 3 or 4. And that's it. That hasn't happened yet, so this is kind of like a preview.
All right, thank you very much. Mrs. Anderson for student achievement.
Yeah, part of the OSBA Capital Conference that Mr. Carpenter was talking about is a student achievement fair where districts are allowed to bring part of their team, things that are going on in our building, and our drone team will be featured this year. So they'll be attending Capital Conference on November 13th and presenting what they do. So I'm really excited. So.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Dorn and Mr. Carpenter for BSEF and financial advisors.
No updates on financial advisory, that actually is due to me here in the coming month this year. Regarding BSCF, a few things happened recently. So we had the second annual color run. It was a lot of fun. A lot of people got very colorful. And that's always a good fundraiser for BSCF. I don't think the final totals are in. There's still donations and sponsorships being tallied. Fall teacher grants for BSCF are due on Monday, this coming Monday, the 30th. And then the trustees will meet a couple weeks later to vote on which of those teacher grant applications will be awarded. So that's always fun to see what's going on in each building and what teachers want to do in an innovative way to bring some changes in technology to their classrooms. And then also the Hall of Fame induction happened 8 weeks ago. We inducted 3 members of our community, Tom Bean from the class of 86, Carrie Beanie Dunn from 87, and then Mr. Greg Sparks, who is a community member, and what you would have thought he went here because he is always here and has done so much for our school community. So PSC's been busy the last couple months.
Right.
17, November 17th. Yep, I got moved.
Mr. Price with the safety committee.
We don't meet our meeting's been delayed until, I think we kept the meeting in September, but next week Friday. So as much as I can, I'll do updates and follow up looking after that as to what was discussed.
And last on the list, back to me for the Greene County ESC Business Advisory Committee. Something of note, and I like that this has been an ongoing topic of conversation with that group of folks. They're trying to plan an event probably in the spring of 2024. I think I heard March, I saw that in the minutes, called Disconnect to Connect. And they're going to attempt to coordinate with all the schools in our county to implement a day that's totally device-free. Obviously, that doesn't count, for using instructional material, or you need pre-books or you need a clever touch or something for that day. But I think that's pretty great. At least exploring those things and how the digital world is intrigued on all of this. So I applaud their efforts for that, and that's something for our folks to be thinking about and planning for, and maybe providing some feedback on. Anything else from committees? Well, then up next, I would like to welcome Mr. Adam Amali. Thank you for being here to give us an update from the Greene County Career Center.
Yes, thank you, Board. I appreciate it. I just want to take a few minutes to make my report. School year started. We've got 500 new students. It was with 400 returning. With the new school and the new campus, it's definitely bringing out the students we're already thinking about. They just finished a construction project, but the next one may not be far behind given the popularity. The 2 classes that have experienced the biggest growth are the health sciences as well as the exercise sciences. So they've added teachers because they really don't want, the Greene County Career Center really doesn't want to be in a position where you're turning students away. You really want to give them those opportunities. So that is what's going on from looking into the future. November 29th through December 1st, there will be the Career Awareness Days. The Bellbrook students will be out there, take a look, all the sophomores will be able to go out there and take a look at the facility, the different programs they've got, and then applications will start December 1st. So I would encourage all students that are interested, definitely get your application early if it does matter. It is a popular place. I did last board meeting, I was able to take a tour of the new greenhouse they built out there. It's quite an advanced facility, doing quite a bit of hydroponics work. And so they're getting the hydroponic system working first, and then they're going to bring fish in to help fertilize the plants. And so they're trying to make it very green and doing a great job at it. So it's neat to see this new facility continue to expand. Another area, I believe Dr. Kozak may have been in the Greene County Superintendent's meeting was held out there. The state representatives, state senators were there to talk about political issues associated with the state. So that was a good opportunity. Finally, the Advanced Robotics for Manufacturing Institute out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, toured the Greene County Career Center and endorsed its program, gave it the certificate for allowing students to be prepared for manufacturing robotics jobs in the future. So they really are, every day trying to get those certifications, doing things to get students ready and things like that. Finally, I said finally, They are, the other thing they're doing is all the seniors out there will be doing 15 hours of community service, so the school board needs help. Here at Bellbrook, they do have, it's not just the Greene County Career Center, they do have satellite programs. And here at the high school, they have the Family and Consumer Science Engineering and Biomedical Technology here locally, so you don't have to leave. I will leave this here, by some weird twist of fate. I walked in the door, was sitting at the table, so I figured I would pick up. If you have any questions or concerns, take a look. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of opportunities there. Do you have any questions?
You said 400 returning and then 500 new,
Yes. So there's 900.
20% growth.
Yeah, it has been, yes, the short answer is
Wow.
they've hired new students and they're working with their student teachers to support the growth. And they're looking at those programs. They're consistently looking at where the programs where we don't have enough students, prop those up and then we move, we're going to change the curriculum. And they do a nice job of, I'll call it polling the community, and one of them is where the A&P, aircraft maintenance, that they've started out there in response to some of the community needs. So they do have a program in A&P to help kids get jobs and take care of that, which is needed now in some environments. Yes.
How much time do you spend like interfacing with them out there, either email, phone, or going out in person?
It's, I go out in person once a month, so, standard sort of board meeting, if there's such a thing. And then, various calls, and I will be, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's my turn to be the president of the Greene County Career Center, so in December, I will be, I turned around and I'm the last man standing as far as that goes, so I will be Greene County Career Center president. I do, I would say 2 or 3 times a month, the superintendent will call with various issues. The thing that I've learned to appreciate about being a superintendent is things, you get involved in things, and it's a board especially too, that you never thought were going to be. Things happen in school, and you're just trying to figure out what's the best approach. So I've learned a lot, but it's not, I would say, it's not time consuming. I enjoy it, look forward to doing it. I'm signed up for another 3 years, I think, last year, whatever, so look forward to fulfilling that contract. And I still enjoy it.
How much, if any, does the Air Force Research Lab play a role in what's going on out there at all?
I would
you work there.
I would say not as much, we are, from my perspective, the lab is we're going to, which is the idea that you create a problem and you get the young people to go, how do you solve this problem? Give a little bit of money, a little bit of time. In past projects that include, an advanced rescue craft, where you've got a pilot in the water, how do you get them out? You drop this drone out of a plane, the cradle releases, the jet ski starts, goes to some waypoint, then it goes back. So it's those kind of programs. And so we've had some discussions, kind of taken action and discussions about the robotics program and the drone program that's out there at the Greene County Career Center now. There may be an opportunity there. We haven't, like I said, we haven't taken that step yet, but we are aware of it.
Thank you for all you do. It's really,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
I enjoyed it, sir. I look forward, whatever you need, please let me know. Please don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
We appreciate you serving very much. Your reports are always very helpful.
All right.
Thank you. Up next, we would like to welcome Mr. Ham.
Good evening.
Hello.
Here at BHS, we're off to a great start, fast start, and a busy start, but it's been very good. As I've said before, BHS never sleeps. We hear drums going, the band's here, theater's practicing. We're kind of drawing down our fall seasons, very successful fall, but there's always something going on here at the high school. First of all, I'd like to, as you know, the district received very positive results on state report card, and high school is no different. We received a 5-star overall rating and received the best scores of any high school in the county. When compared to our similar, and obviously we're very proud of our staff and students for all their efforts to get to this point. And I'd also like to point out that any recognition that high school receives really is kind of a culmination of 12, 13 years of schooling in this district. So any accolades we receive at the high school also is really a district recognition for our elementaries, intermediate building, middle school, and everybody all the way up. It takes a team. We had 4 national merit semifinals. Adam Dean, Maya Brake, Lincoln Warren, and Lorelei Overton. That's the top 1% in the country on the National Merit Scholarship test, National Merit Scholarship Program. Roughly, there are 50,000 semifinalists in the country. We had 4 of them. We also had 7 commended students. So Daniel Betts, Brown Carper, Akuya Ford, Seth Gideon, Xander Pittman, Zach Shore, and Jared Warner. They also were top 1%. The way it works is these guys all qualify to be semifinalists. But the program works in a way that your state only gets the same percentage of graduates in your state. So if Ohio produces, let's say, 3% of the graduates in the country, we can only have 3% of national merit semifinalists. So these guys together, 11 people, is the best we've ever done. I did some research, contacted the National Merit Scholarship Group program. They sent me back for research back in 1974, and 11 is the best we've ever had. We had 10 one year back in 2013. We had 3 semifinalists and 7 commended students. One year we had 5 semifinalists back in 2022, so not that long ago. But this group of kids set the record for VHS, so that's awesome. Also, last May we had 159 kids take 279 AP exams. 87% of the students passed, received a 3, 4, or 5. I believe I said last year that the year before was our highest passing percentage ever. This would be probably our second, with like tenths of a point beating that record. And we had the highest percentage of 5s in school history. It wasn't even close. So our AP teachers, AP students last year, last year we had 206 juniors take the ACT. Our comprehensive score was almost a 23 in rural areas. And then again, we were recognized by U.S. News and World Report as one of the top schools in the nation. VHS has received national recognition since 2007 every year, either by U.S. News or the Washington Post or Newsweek. But we've done this 12 years in a row through the U.S. News and World Report. And that's very proud of that recognition. The arts. Our music program is right in the middle of things. Last week we had our Halloween spectacular in the gym. Most of you guys were there. Middle school bands, high school bands were on the floor. That was pretty cool. A lot of kids on that gym floor. Acoustic's not the best in the gym, but they played great and they played a couple songs together at the end. The marching band, the show Press Play, is really coming along. I think have one more segment to put in. They're looking really good. The choir as well. Last weekend was our invitation here at Bellbrook. We had schools in Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky all here competing. Our command performance is November 6th. And then we will play in Indianapolis at the Grand Nationals on the 10th at 5:30. I got that confirmation. Theater has a fall play coming up, and they're practicing in there right now. The play will be Still Magnolias. And that is November 16th, 17th, 18th. And there's actually 2 different casts going on. It's kind of rotating. Something they're doing differently this year. So 2 different casts. There's 4 performances total, so each cast will do 2 performances. If you follow our district social media, you'll see that our art classes are very active. Doing all sorts of things, all sorts of media, all sorts of projects, field trips. It's a growing program, and there's a lot of real-world applications and careers that they're exploring. I mentioned the fall sports earlier. This year we have league realignment. We added Edgewood and Ross to the league, 2 bigger schools, and realigned divisions. So we are on the southwestern side of the league now with the other 4 bigger schools. We've had a very successful fall, probably the most successful that I can remember. We won 7 of 9 league championships. That included football. We mixed graphic last Friday, so but So, girls cross country, boys soccer, girls tennis, boys and girls golf, volleyball, and football. Girls soccer had an undefeated season, came in second, and boys cross country came in second. So very successful fall. And football team may play the playoff team tomorrow at Wilmington. So a great start to the year. But it always helps the school year start. Homecoming was also a few weeks ago. Our homecoming team was Kendall. And obviously, you guys have been here long enough to know that homecoming is a big deal here and everywhere else. Powder puff game, which is always entertaining. Bonfire after that, and as long as we don't set fire to cross country course, so win. We beat Monroe, it was 49-6, and then we had 730 kids in the gym in this area here for the homecoming dance. Packed them in, so it was a great week, and it's always fun. Obviously, we also had, as mentioned before, Hall of Fame inductions. That week too, which is senior class, we will listen to their speeches and see those folks weekend. Hopefully one of these days, some of our seniors will join in there as well. We also had the military appreciation game, September 22nd. Veterans are free and recognized for service. We also had Eva, who's founder of the Ohio Purple Star School Program, and Tammy Puff, who's the governor's director of military veterans relations, visited DHS weeks ago. They complimented the school, but more importantly, the district on our efforts to engage with families in the military, and also to kind of respond to challenges some of those military-connected kids face, especially when they're transitioning to new schools. And then also it recognizes for keeping them on track, preparing them for college, the workforce, and life in general. So that's a good visit. Next thing there is culture. Our school's culture is one of the things that makes DHS special and Bellbrook School special for that matter. It's always a work in progress, and it takes everybody to make sure it happens. And our culture brings us together around common beliefs and behaviors, and that eventually ultimately determines how far we can go and how we prepare ourselves for the future. So the district's looking at three things. We want to do the right thing, soar together, and pursue excellence. The last couple of years, district administrators and teachers have been introduced and trained in Focus 3 and the R Factor, and this year we're kind of rolling out to our students a little bit more in depth. We've had a slow roll for a few years here. COVID kind of interfered with some stuff, obviously. But it's kind of coming out now. You probably noticed the banner and the slow fields and the verbiage for years around here. As I stated earlier, we did have a good start to the school year. I do believe that part of that is due to our culture work. Our students know what's expected of them. We all know we can achieve more. We're all moving in the same direction. You get a chance to the chart there, from right to the left. That is our first quarter discipline, basically, for the last 15 years. And as you see, if you read from right to left, it steadily improves. The number of discipline referrals has gone down consistently. I think in part, that's due to some of all the things we worked on. First quarter is always the toughest, discipline-wise. Kids are kind of getting back in it. You got to break all those middle school kids coming in and teaching them in high school now. And you got to break the high school kids, remind them, hey, you're back in school now, summer's over, let's go. So, but our kids have been great, very cooperative, and we've had a lot of success. And I'd like to think that the culture work is paying off there a little bit. Our last slide, and I'll get out of here, is social media. If you are not following our social media, please do. Bellbrook High School has a Facebook page, an Instagram page, and obviously we have a district pages as well. If you want to see what's going on in high school and district at large, this is a good way to do it. We post daily. You see a lot of things that are going on in the classrooms, the teams, what kids are doing. So it's a good way to see things as they happen. Any questions? Any support? There's a lot of this stuff going on.
Miss Dolly that works in the office, is she going to be in Steel Magnolia?
She is. She's a little cardboard. I gotta work on that. I'm stir up a bit. She is the star of the office. Also, she is somehow going to be working, as I understand.
Nice.
Yes. Should be
Thank you very much.
Up next, we would like to welcome Betsy Dean, Director of Curriculum. Thanks so much for being here.
I've heard copies for use of it. And to ease your transition to going electronic. We can relate to those changes. Gosh, it feels like it was just yesterday I did this presentation for the last report card, so lots of great things to celebrate, just like Mr. Pan shared. I have the pleasure to represent the entire district. We have a lot of employees here tonight. And like Dave said, this report card represents not only the tested buildings or the tested grade levels, but even Stephen Bell, where they don't have state tests, they do monitor growth and monitor achievement and provide that information and set the stage certainly for the success that we enjoy, that the kids enjoy, and that we get to claim on our banners and certainly tonight. So I am very mindful that it's with great pride that I get to present this tonight on behalf of the district. So some of the highlights. Most of our students continue to make above expected growth. That is a really big goal that we have, that students are not only achieving, but they're also growing, they're moving forward. They're not sitting through content that they learn really fast or they already know. Or if they're struggling and we need to fill some gaps, that they're continuing to move forward even if they may not achieve at grade level yet. We still want growth. The performance of our special populations or subgroup populations continues to improve, and I'll show you some of that later. And the overall achievement or passage rate remains high. And we spent a lot of time talking about writing and really digging into our writing sub-scores. We knew that our kids were better writers than our data was showing. So our writing sub-scores improved significantly, and I'll share that here in a little bit. So again, one of our biggest goals is growth, because all kids can show growth. This is a snapshot of the overall district report card. At the risk of being a little boring, it is 5 stars across the board. Overall rating is 5, and all of those components, we earned a 5. So I'm going to hit some highlights there of the big rocks. There are many, 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 many parts of the report card. I could be here till midnight probably digging into lots of reports, but I don't think you want to stay that long. The overall achievement means passage rate. So the percentage of kids earning a 3, for example, or above, passing the state test. And the percentage of kids that are exceeding that, we get like weighted points, that's called performance index. You get some weighted points, kids that are accelerated in mathematics get a little bump there. So all of those things go into an achievement rating. And this is a little bit more detail about that proficiency rating. The big factors, I did make a correction. The big factors are achievement, performance index, and the value added. And there are 5 areas that comprise that district report card. But those are the ones that carry the most weight. So now let's get into the schools. So state testing starts, as you know, in grade 3. The achievement rating for Bell Creek was also 5 stars. Congratulations to all Bell Creek teachers and parents and students. And Mr. Cox, I'm not sure if he's here yet. They had conferences until at least 7. And the performance index. And just to talk a little bit more about that weighted the weighted points I mentioned, students that are accelerated in mathematics, we do have kids taking Math 5 as 4th graders or Math 6 as 5th graders at Bellbrook. That dark green portion of the circle graph or the bar chart on the right, that represents the kids that are scoring really high on an accelerated level test. So you get extra points in that area. So that's what I mean by weighted. And then moving on to the middle school, overall achievement is 5 stars. So again, passage rates. And then looking at that circle graph again, you'll see the dark green is a little bigger. Each year we have exponentially more kids either identified gifted because new kids are taking tests to identify them. More kids are being accelerated because of new testing and new qualifications. So that green area gets a little bit bigger, the dark green. So there are more weighted points happening at the middle school. So those kids are performing as well. So it's not a given just because they're accelerated that you're going to earn these weighted points. They have to continue to succeed at the above grade level expectations. And then at the high school, again, achievement, 5 stars out of 5 stars. And we're only testing up through geometry, so that green sliver is getting smaller. You don't have nearly as many students in that accelerated testing pool, so that's why that looks a little different. Again, very high achievement of all the students being tested, and a 5-star rating in the high school. Now we move into progress. Student growth has been called 3 different things over the years, ever since value added came out. It was called value added, so student growth or progress. It all means the same thing. Am I continuing to move forward? 1 year's growth in 1 year's time. Am I keeping my place in line, or am I kind of falling backward? So if you think about it like a percentile ranking, if I'm in the middle of the bell curve, 50th percentile, am I remaining at the 50th percentile year after year after year? That would be maintaining my position. That's expected. We want to at least maintain position as a learner and not fall behind. When we have a large group of students falling behind compared to other kids in the state, that's when value added or progress grades go down. So you're going to see a low number of stars for those districts when their kids start to fall backward compared to other students in the same grade level across the state. So for us to earn 5 stars, the top rating in growth means that the majority of our kids are moving up in their percentile ranks compared to other kids around the state. That is really hard to do with a big group of students and to maintain that. We had a 5-star last year. We have a 5-star this year. The hardest thing to do is to maintain that year after year. So we've got to keep the gas on, and I have no doubt that the students, staff, and families, we all rise to the occasion. But bringing that to the table, high attendance rate makes a huge difference. The fact that we were in school for all those days during very trying times with COVID, all of that helped us maintain that growth. So this just, I like this graphic, it just gives you an idea of how we talk about growth versus achievement or proficiency. So we look at, can the student meet the minimum, or can they pass a certain standard? Yes or no? If no, are they continuing to show growth? We definitely can do that, even if we're not passing. We want both. We want high growth and high achievement. But if we can't have high achievement, we definitely can show growth with 100% of our students. flipping, I think I got 2 ahead, yeah. Just to make sure everyone realizes I'm not leaving Stephen Bell out, we just don't have report card ratings for Stephen Bell in the areas covered by testing. Of course, attendance and the K-3 literacy is on the report card, but we do not have testing, so I just want to make that clear. We monitor growth at Stephen Bell through the MAP assessment and Stephen Bell K-1-2 in both math and reading continue. The students continue to show very strong growth year after year. Bell Creek, the progress rating was 2 stars. That's a 2-year average. During COVID, they stopped the average. On the report cards prior to COVID, it was a 3-year average on the report cards. So the COVID year, no testing during the shutdown that spring. Then they started those averages over again. So now we have a 2-year average. So for Bell Creek, it's 2 stars. However, I will tell you that for this past school year, their 1-year average was 3 stars. So they are moving up. So with continued progress, like what was made last year in that 9-month period, I would foresee that average moving up. It's impossible to replicate that statistical analysis locally, but the 1-year average certainly makes us quite hopeful that we're on the right track. So congratulations to Bell Creek. The middle star remains at 5 stars for progress or student growth. And the high school remains at 4 stars. And again, overall, when all of those statistics were averaged, we have a 5-star rating for the entire district. Last year when I presented, there were some questions about special education. Was special education an area that we monitor? And is there anything on the report card that helps us understand that performance? And I mentioned that special education shows up as a subgroup in gap closing, but I didn't go deep into that. I still won't go deep, but I did give you a handout that's a loose handout in your packet that itemizes all of our subgroups that are monitored. And the AMO, that acronym that's on that handout, stands for Annual Measurable Objectives. And there are goals set forth by the federal government under No Child Left Behind, the Every Student Succeeds Act. So every so often a big legislation gets passed that says X% of our students in this particular category must show proficiency. And they put forth these goals that the states then are charged to put forth to us. So that's what you'll see there in gold, the gold column and the long-term goal column. They give you a chance to work up to that long-term goal. So those categories in the far left column, English learner, all the way down through all students and multiracial. Those are the categories that are measured under gap closing. The idea here is that compared to the all students category, these are the groups that historically, there's no doubt about it, there have been performance gaps and schools are charged with closing those gaps. So the goals are listed there in the third column, and you can see that we met the goal in every single category. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, including multiracial at the end, 9, including all students. But if we only count subgroups, there are 8. And they're all green. So that first table is for English language arts. The second table is for math. And the pattern is the same, all green. Question?
Just make sure I'm reading it right.
Yes.
So what's in green is our score, and what's next to it under goal is the goal.
Yes.
So I heard you say we're meeting them, we're crushing them apparently.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's amazing.
And that's why we earned 5 stars in that closing area.
Question on that, is this, I see like all students, 1,456, but we have about 2,750 in our district. So is this just high school or, I'm sorry, middle school and high school, is that what it is?
This is 1,456 tests. That's actual test count. So that's grade 3, English language arts, and math. Each student in grade 3, that would count 2 tests. Grade 4, 2 tests. Grade 5, 3 tests, including science. So up through grade 10.
Okay.
So it's not corresponding to the number of students in the district, just the actual physical number of tests taken. Some kids are exempt, so those are subtracted out. Number of tests scored. Hopefully that helps give you a
When
little
you talk
more.
about the gain index column, is that, if it's negative, does that mean that we lost progress, or is that?
That's statistically insignificant unless it gets to a negative 2.0.
Okay.
That's why it's still giving us a point in the right-hand column. That stands for value-added gain index. So you have a 2.0 standard margin of error, positive 2, negative 2. You're welcome. Dave mentioned similar districts, similar high schools, and a lot of times we obviously like to compare ourselves and see how we're doing, whether it's sports or academics or what have you, offerings. I just thought I'd spend a little time as I wrap up talking about what we mean by similar districts or what ODE means by similar districts. It's not just size, income, and the kinds of courses that are offered, that kind of thing. These 2 slides tell you the exact type of data that they look at to determine who our similar districts are. So from student enrollment down to adjusted gross income, tax returns, and population density. So sometimes you'll notice there's a similar district and you think, well, that's strange. They're really small compared to us, or they're really big compared to us. Well, it's about population density, not so much square mileage. And then it goes into some more demographics, including minority, racial, ethnic enrollment, etc. College education of residents. And then you have information, I think it's stapled to the back of the packet. I have that link there. So on your electronic version, you can click the word data and open up that handout that's on the back of your packet. Those are our similar districts. Henry, will that work for you? Can you pop open that link that says data at the bottom?
One second.
And then, thank you, that's perfect. You can make that a little bigger. I think this is just worth celebrating. There are, I think, 20 districts listed there. These are similar districts according to those criteria. I believe there were 7 criteria on the previous 2 slides. So Bellbrook, Aurora, Princeton, a lot of these I haven't heard of before, and we look at these every once in a while, but it's not part of everyday conversation. And you'll see there are a couple that we recognize that are in our immediate area, but not many. They're all over the state. And you can see the way this is sorted. I just have Bellbrook at the top, and then it's sorted in descending order in terms of overall grading. So we crushed it. We're one of 2 out of that list of 20 that earned all 5 stars in all the categories.
That's what I understand is you can get, overall, you get 5 stars without having 5 stars in all categories.
Correct.
So what I also understood, like you mentioned 2 here, but I believe statewide we were one of 8 districts out of over 600 that score 5s in all categories. Is that correct?
I believe that's it, yes. 8 was the number, right? Yeah, and out of the similar, that's why I thought this was pretty cool too, because out of the ones that we're ranked similar to, there are only 2 of us with 5s in every category. But almost all of them have 5s overall, but they have some. And that's because things are weighted differently. The report card is super complicated, so it's not just a straight average. Certain categories are given a little heavier weights.
I got you.
Thank you. All right, we're winding down. How am I doing on time?
This is excellent. Keep going.
Well, thank you.
As long as you want.
You know, it's hard to make the data pretty. I don't have all those cool pictures from social media. I just work on that. But I love data, so I'm in heaven here. But, so our action, continued improvement, keep doing what we're doing. The MAP assessments measure growth over time. That's really important to us. It's the only thing we have that measures growth. We have lots of assessments in the classroom that measure success. How do we know kids are working from day to day? We have to measure that. But really measuring growth over time is critical, especially for our student population. Short cycle checks for student mastery. Last year we incorporated something called Restart Readiness. Little practice tests, and we refined that, kind of learned some things from that last year. I think it worked really well. It was a little bumpy. It was a brand new tool that came out from the state and gave kids a chance to practice on the actual platform that the state test is administered on, and it gave teachers data immediately. One problem with state testing is you test and then you get the data later and it's too late to do anything about it. We're getting it quicker every year, but it's still, the end of the year. But this, at least they're getting their data quickly and they can respond. So response is going pretty well to that, and I think this year will be better because we're refining the way we approach that. Writing instruction, spending more time with that writing data and really thinking about some instructional strategies that we can add on to any approach to writing is what we focused on last year, and we'll just continue to support teachers with that effort. We are going into an English language arts adoption this year, so writing is obviously going to be a big, big piece of that plate. And making sure we're prioritizing collaboration time on staff development days, always having time for teacher-based teams on those days, and there's never enough time, I acknowledge that, but making sure that's one of the first things I plug into those days is a priority that I make. Get the vertical team meetings so we can continue to monitor that growth and instructional strategies. And our K-3 teachers have been so busy. We have a lot of mandates with the dyslexia legislation and the training that is legislated every staff development day starting last year. Pretty early in the year, not quite at the beginning, but mid-year, I'd say. Through this year, every staff development day and late start, they are in required structured literacy training, the big 5. So it's a lot. And so second semester, I believe, grades 4 through middle school, we'll start to see that training roll out. So we're all learning a lot, and it's been great for kids, but it's a lot for everyone. So I thank all of you. It's a lot of work. And then peer-to-peer classroom observations. We've had some of that going on in the middle school, and we're starting to expand that and plan that out so that teachers can get in and really observe each other's practice and discuss. They learn from one another in their own context rather than sitting and listening to experts. So practicing some feedback with one another so that they can take that back to their own classrooms and practice that with their students. So that's something else that we're doing. Again, we're going to continue to focus on growth. Our 2-year averages remain the same. I already mentioned kudos to Bellbrook-Sugarcreek, the 1-year rating increase. So we're going to see, I'm very confident that things are going to continue to improve on the report card. And the focus on writing, this is amazing. The writing subscores, when kids write on the state test, there are typically 2 prompts. They're asked to do 2 different writing pieces. And there are rubrics that are, the scores are, each writing piece is worth 10 points. I'm trying to simplify this, sorry. But the way that works out is there are many subcategories within that 10 points. And what we did was we looked at all the district, all those tests, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, all of those. What are all those areas, those subscores? And we've been monitoring those subscores for a few years, and we're looking at trends. Are we moving in the right direction? Are more kids earning 4s on this particular area of the rubric this year compared to last year? Are more kids earning 2 out of 2 on the grammar section than in prior years? Are more kids earning 4 out of 4 here and out of the 10 points? So there are 4 points, 4 points, and 2 points. So out of 33 different categories available, 20 areas improved in 1 year. So that was a long way to take you around. I should have went the detour, but 20 out of 33 writing categories went up, and that is the direct result of teachers working on writing with students. That doesn't happen accidentally. It's just not that natural to suddenly become successful in a very complicated writing task. It's not creative writing. This is tough stuff that we're asking kids to do. So the teachers have done an amazing job. We're really proud.
Writing is simple, computer graded, like AI graded,
Yes.
or is it person?
It is.
You have to know how to please the computer overlords. All right.
Yes. So, 5 stars. We're excited. And I always end this presentation with this quote, and it always strikes me a little bit differently every year. But not everything that counts can be counted. We know that. We don't live and die by test scores. We do a whole lot more here than tests. I know it feels like that sometimes. And it's important to know where kids are. We have to take the temperature and gauge our success, certainly. But there are a lot of important things that we do, and I just want to publicly thank everybody that participates in all the great things happening in your classrooms, and administrators for all their support as well. And not everything that is counted counts. But we keep doing what we do, and the kids keep succeeding, and we'll be here for it, no matter what test is coming our way. Do you have any questions?
I just want to say that results like this are undeniably amazing. Just when you think you can't do any better, you get news like this. A little anecdote. I'll try and talk up schools as much as I can out and about in the community, and I'll mention to people, hey, did you know we were one of 8 out of 620 something? Without fail, somebody would be like, wow, 1 of 80, that's amazing, out of 620. One of 8, not 82 or 8, that's absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for everything that you do, like on behalf of our community. Thank you for what you do, and thank you to all of our amazing teachers, administrators, administrators and staff. It's absolutely incredible.
It takes a team. We're a good team.
Thanks for digesting this.
Thank you.
As seven corporates, we've gone through, we've done it, so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to reiterate thanks to Ms. Gann and her leadership and principals, teachers, support staff, everybody working together, team effort, from, getting on the bus in the morning to, learning at school, to lunches, to then more school, and then, getting off on that bus, getting picked up at the end of the day. Truly a team effort, of getting everybody not only learning, but being successful, being safe. In the past, we've had great, or letter grades, moved to stars, and try to simplify things, but you really see, you only touch the surface, and it's really a complex, complicated system, even though they try to make, hey, it's only stars, it's simple. Really, when you dig down, it gets very complex. And also Ms. Gann said, we're more than test scores, even though we're rocking it with test scores. We have a quality profile that highlights all the great things, in addition to our test scores and our report card that we do, and that is coming out in the bridge. It should be coming out within the next week or so. So our quality profile is in there of all the other great things that our school district is doing of a well-rounded education, not just knocking out of the park with the test scores, but all these other items also.
Of course, I think it's worth mentioning that it's also our community, of course, that's enabled us, and trusted us with funding, that allowed us to bring teachers back, that allowed us to reduce class sizes. So again, it's a team effort, really starting with the students themselves. They have to be self-motivated. To parents, and obviously teachers, staff, administration, and the community. It's a community village effort, if you want to say that, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely the support at home also, making sure they're doing the work, they're focused, they're ready to learn, getting their sleep, they're doing what they need to do to be ready to learn.
Very good. Moving on our agenda, up next, Dr. Kozak.
Yeah, this is one of the policies that is up for approval. It was first read at the last meeting. And just to provide a little bit more explanation of this one, I'll try to go into a little more detail, but not too much detail. So this is 9130, so this is public complaints. And really the first part of the policy, there's only one minor change. Really, it was kind of a typo of changing supervisor to superintendent and so forth. So that first section really stayed the same. The area that really changed a lot was matters regarding instructional materials. And so, so the one we have was a little outdated with titles and so forth and some different levels. So just try to go through. So we have 4 different levels with this complaint system, just like we do with the matters regarding professional staff members. So trying to mirror those of working up the chain also in both those situations. So there's the policy here, and then there's an accompanying form that goes with this that is not officially voted with the policy, but it's going to carry out the things that are on the policy. So the form is going to be the piece that really makes the action of the policy, more of administrative guidelines along with that. So with the level 1 complaint, really it's any type of instructional material, library materials, media materials, anything like that. Really trying to resolve it at the lowest level, closest to the classroom or the library level, trying to resolve that, those things at that lowest level. And again, so there's a form that is a detailed form of essentially what are the issue with the material, recommendations, is there any benefits, themes or messages that are part of the resources. So those things that you see on the level 1 up here, those kind of indented there, author, title, and so forth. So those things are on the form that accompanies the policy, but it's not a part of the policy. So try to resolve the situation at the level 1. And if we can't resolve it at level 1, then we go to level 2. And so level 2 then takes it to Ms. Gann and myself. And we obviously at each level, reading and examining the challenge materials, the pieces of it, and seeing if those things can be resolved at our level. And if they can't really be resolved, then we would, I would appoint a review committee that is made up of, as it says on here, 1 or more professional staff members, a director of curriculum, building principals, 2 teachers, a couple parents. If it's in the library, media specialist, 1 or more lay persons knowledgeable in the area, and the superintendent can be ex officio, so I think that's how you say it, member of the committee. And so really trying to get a well-rounded perspective on this particular material. And that committee is going to, the review committee will then put together a report that again is through a form, and there are deadlines, there's timelines through this whole process here. But that committee is going to be guided by the following criteria: the appropriateness of the material, the age and maturity level of the students on whom it's being used, the accuracy of the material, the objectivity of the material, use being made of the material. And then they make a recommendation to myself, and then I can either accept all the recommendations, part of them, or remove any of those, remove that, or decline their recommendation, whatever it would be. And again, and so that information would be given back to the complainant. So the complainant, if they're not satisfied at each level, they would then go up to the next level. If they aren't satisfied with my decision based on the committee, the review of the committee, then they would take it up to the board. And again, obviously the board would need to read and examine the challenge material. And at that point, within the level 4, the material really can't be removed until the board makes a decision at that point of what it wants to do at that particular level 4 appeal. So obviously the policy is going to be in the Neola section of our policy online, but the form will then also live in the library section of the webpage, and then also the parent resources section, so it can be accessible by the public if the occasion would rise for someone that would want to go down, or would want to do this process. So hopefully that provides a little bit more explanation, and not too deep of a level, but enough of an explanation.
Appreciate that very much. People have comments, we can maybe get to that later on in the section of the agenda over there. But what I like about this, and the only reason this came to like the policy committee or whatever, is because somebody brought up current policy mentioned a county curriculum director, which does not exist, I guess. So we should probably make county superintendent, so we should probably make sure our policy matches. But what I like best about this, as I read it for the first time a couple weeks ago, we got it 2-3 days ahead of the public. 1, boring. You almost fall asleep reading it. It's necessary. You gotta have good policy, but it's boring. It's what you would expect it to be. Having that decision be made at the lowest level, at the voting, at the teacher level. That's where you want it, obviously. So anyway, thank you. I don't even know who all put that together, but thanks for doing that.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
Sure.
You can say that.
Feel free.
I was just going to ask Dr. Kirk, can you explain a little bit as to what went into creating the revision? Like how was it developed?
Sure, so looking at other districts and what they have in their particular review steps and so forth. So really borrowing the best of what other districts have, not trying to recreate the wheel. And so looking at kind of what we had previously and taking the things that out of there were good also, but also updating them to make sure that we're at our level and making sure that there's the different levels that kind of also mirror the first part of this 9130 of the bachelor Yep.
And so the policy was originally adopted in March of 2006, is that correct?
Correct.
So you're just adding the different levels of complaint procedure. Basically.
Yeah, so we're taking out the matters regarding instructional materials, all that red, that is going away. Some of that is in the new section, it just,
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap.
yeah, there's some overlap there, it just got,
So nothing, not essentially a new policy, just revising the one. you currently
yes, and creating some more layers. Yeah.
So that's what's under proposal. We can talk about it more when we get to the second read. Okay. Anything else, sir?
Just one little more, so and Ms. Dorn mentioned it earlier, I can mention it later, but I'll mention it now. So there was one addition from the first read to the second read, and that really is, it was assumed that it was happening, but we put it in there at level 2, that the superintendent and the director of curriculum are going to read and examine the challenge material. It was assumed that was happening, but that wasn't in there, and then also at the board level. Assumed, but those are the things that were added by the suggestion from somebody.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, moving on. We would now like to welcome Mr. Mark Carrera, President of the Teachers Union. Welcome, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Dr. Rosette, for clarifying that some of the key points related to the policy change and to make it much more, I think, realistic. I have a question. Can I ask a question really quick? If it's possible, you know, obviously not. But if it goes all the way to the board, the only question I would have is that something done in executive session, or would that be done in a vote? Or if there was a vote that was going to be removed, would that take place in front of everyone, or that?
Like, you want us to read it out loud in front of them?
Read the book.
I mean, that might not be a bad.
No, I would say more along the lines of just taking a vote on the book. So we're looking at removing this book.
Certainly, I'm sorry that I interrupted.
No, I'm sorry, I was just wondering.
I mean, certainly, we can never by law make any decision on anything, not in a public meeting.
Okay.
Like, it would have to be a public meeting. Good question on some of the details, maybe it's something we can think about and get you an answer later. But we can't do anything. We can't take a vote on anything, we can't decide anything, we can do nothing in executive session. That's just where we share some information based only on those 6 very specific areas that Ohio revised code applies.
Which I don't think would cover that.
No, I don't think so.
But I think the one thing was, it would be made on the committee, would it be just the board?
That was
That was level 2.
That was the early.
Thank you.
So so level 4 in that second paragraph, the board, capital I, in consultation with superintendent, director of curriculum, read and examine the challenge material, and shall review the case and advise the complainant in writing its decision within 60 days. So in order for the board to act, it's got to be out here. Now, somebody, the board president, can do some legwork ahead of time, but that decision to be out in public, yes.
I don't know if I can just go on record and say, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that, but let's sell their level 1 if they're ever leaving. Thank you for the question.
I appreciate that. Well, there's really no reason that I'm here tonight. I'm speaking to the SAA. Thank you again for that opportunity. I myself am out on social media. I think social media is probably one of the worst things that's ever happened to me. But when it comes to social media, a lot of times I will receive screenshots and conversations that involve various components of the community. And, you know, recently, what I would really like to encourage is that if board members are engaging in conversations on social media, be cognizant that like staff members are probably looking at what you're putting out there also, not just constituents perhaps that you are trying to appeal to, maybe, you know, just gather their support. And so some comments that can be made, you know, such as, and I know this is, you know, this is touchy subject, but when literature is just termed pornography without really any context, it becomes to me like something that is just meant to rile people up. And all of our media specialists in this district are classified staff members, meaning that they are paid significantly less than certified staff members. And I just personally feel for some of those staff members who have come to me and said that they feel that they are in the crosshairs of like a little bit of a culture war that is realistically unnecessary. I mean, I've taught this district for 25 years, and a lot of these topics that are coming up are sometimes flavor of the month. I mean, I remember when we were talking about CRT a couple years ago, and that's not really being discussed anymore. Now it's pornography in our libraries. And I understand concern for the material that our students are exposed to. But again, my concern also is just our staff members and just encouraging you as board members and as the leadership of our district to just consider them. I know that like in our focus 3 that Mr. Ham referred to earlier, there's a saying that it says, if you permit it, you promote it. And so, our feeling that we've discussed amongst our board is that by permitting some of these attacks on our school and on our staff members, and you're promoting those things. And I don't know that that's the intention. I sincerely do not think it's the intention. But I hope that you would, again, just consider that as you are engaging in some of these. So I would appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
And thank you very much. I think everybody can always strive to do better, for sure. But thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Okay, we're now moving into open communication. So we'll grab the sheet. Your thoughts and comments are very welcome during this time. When given the floor, please share your name, address, and any group affiliation you hold if it's relevant. You'll then have 5 minutes for your comments, which should be directed toward the presiding officer and no one else. Tonight that happens to be me. This time is for the board to listen and absorb, and as such, traditionally, a dialogue is not created in this moment. In case you're wondering, the reason for these policies, which can be read in their entirety on the district's website in policy number 169.91, is to ensure that as many people as possible have the opportunity to speak and that everyone is treated equally and fairly. So first, I would like to welcome Ann Pryor. Welcome, thanks for being here. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you for having me. My name is Ann Pryor. I live in Cable Mill. I'm running for school board. I want to talk about library books. I'm glad you're voting on that policy soon. There's a great procedure outlined for how parents can challenge books. It's not something any of us want done willy-nilly, and hopefully it will never make it all the way up to the board level. And there's one other thing I really want. I think parents need more transparency with the school and the library so we know what's in the library. I mean, like how are books chosen? What does age appropriate mean? What sex topics are in books in the library that our kids might come across? For the record, I don't want any book banned in the United States. I think all books, no matter how awful I think they are, should be available at the public library and on Amazon. But schools need to be more careful to select age-appropriate books. Because at school, our kids are looking for books without their parents. And I really think parents are the people who should be determining what their kids read. Some parents, like myself, are very careful about what our children read and watch on TV and look at on the internet. In the 14 years I've been in Bellbrook schools, it's never occurred to me that I needed to worry about what was in the library. The school does such a great job monitoring the internet and requiring permission slip for a movie or health class, so it never occurred to me that there might be something in the library that I wouldn't approve of. However, just in the past week, I've heard from assorted parents about books they were concerned about the library, and I thought I'd better look into that. So one of the books in particular people were concerned about was The Perks of Being a Wallflower. And I found this listed in the middle school library card catalog just this past Monday. And I'm going to read a couple parts of this book, and if anyone has any kids listening, I suggest having them leave the room. Pretty soon he took off her bra and started to kiss her breast. And then he put his hand down her pants and she started moaning. I think they were both very drunk. He reached to take off her pants, but she started crying really hard. So he reached for his own. He pulled his pants and underwear down to his knees. Please, Dave, no. But the boy just talked soft to her about how good she looked and things like that, and she grabbed his penis with her hands and started moving it. After a few minutes, the boy pushed the girl's head down and she started to kiss his penis. She was still crying. Finally, she stopped crying because he put his penis in her mouth, and I don't think you can cry in that position. I had to stop watching at that point because I started to feel sick, but it kept going on. And they kept doing other things, and she kept saying no. There's lots of other good sections, examples in here. Let's see.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'm just curious, are they all similar to that?
There's some references to anal sex that I wasn't going to read. Here's one about so they have this picnic with sandwiches and everything. They start to make out. The stereo's playing. They're just about to do it when Parker realizes he forgot the condom. They're both naked on the putting green. They both want each other. There's no condom. What do you think happened? They did it doggy style with one of the sandwich bags. And here's a good one. There was a guy named Carl Burns, and everyone called him CB. And one day, CB got so drunk at a party that he tried to FUCK the host's daughter. So anyway, this is a lot of examples in that book of what I don't want my middle schoolers to read. I don't want the vision of a man having sex with a dog polluting the brain of my child's development. So I contacted Mrs. Stewart, the middle school librarian, about this book on Monday. I just asked her if I could borrow it to look at it. I said I'd heard about it and I wanted to see if it was appropriate for my son, because I told her I'm saying give her a list of books that I don't want my child to read. Between parents and staff. Now, I don't know that my opinion will have anything to do with her removing that book, but I do think it was a really good decision. I feel like, our community, we ask them to pay for these schools, and I don't think they want us wasting their money on stuff like this. But I also realize that a lot of people love that book and want their kids to read it. So I just want transparency regarding these books. Like, I want to know what the guidelines are, what we might find in the libraries. I would be happy to give the librarians a list of books I don't want my child to read, but I don't know what's all in the library. Can we get a list of all the books in there with explicit sex scenes and references to bestiality? Because I would select those and not have my kid read them. I'm envisioning something on final forms, maybe that parents fill out every fall, and they could select, I want my kid to have full library access. Or I'd select, I don't want the sex scenes or the anal sex or the bestiality. I would like my kid not to read those. And this might be a good compromise. I still don't think the school library needs everything. I take my child to the public library all the time because there's a lot of books the school library just doesn't have. There's 130 million different books in the world. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, I'd like to welcome Scott Cronin. Welcome. Thank you for being here. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Scott Cronin. I live at 3949 Elizabeth Circle here in Bellbrook. My wife, Katie Cronin, could not be here tonight because she's a teacher in another local district. They had conferences tonight as well. We do have 2 children in the district, a 3rd grader and a 6th grader. We just moved to the district this past March. Now, one of the things that drew us to this community was the schools. And in fact, we've been trying to move to Bellbrook for about 3 years. I wanted to kind of give you our short-term view, I guess, of what we have seen. And I guess now that you guys have had your state report cards, here's one parent's report card. We are so thankful for our school district. We are beyond impressed. First, I want to thank a few people in particular. I want to thank Mr. Phelps. I'm not sure if he's here tonight, but I want to thank him. We met him at the orientation this summer, And immediately, my wife and I were both very impressed. His enthusiasm, his passion for creating an environment for our children to thrive was evident. Lots of fun stuff. I know I only had 5 minutes, but the fun run was awesome. My kid complained she couldn't walk the next day, but that was her fault. She had so much fun. The communication's been great. Just so pleased with the staff there at East County and him in particular. I want to go ahead and mention my daughter's third grade teacher, Mrs. Torres. We just moved here, and so we were very concerned about the transition. I can say that my third grader loves coming to class. In fact, she was sick not too long ago. She was very upset that she was going to miss school. I think Mr. Torres has created an awesome culture in their classroom. My daughter just loves going to school. She's being challenged every day. She's growing. We just had conferences this week, and we're just very thankful for her and what a great job she's doing there. We have a sixth grader over at the middle school, so I want to thank Mrs. Hill and Mr. Killing and all the amazing staff at the Bellbrook Middle School. My wife and I, we loved the orientation. We loved getting to sit there and see kind of the vision that you had for education, your philosophy for education, the idea of mastery over the subject matter. I mean, that's something that I really appreciate. My sixth graders found the transition a little hard, but I am absolutely convinced that you're doing a great job to prepare her to succeed, and so I just wanted to say thank you so much. It was so great to go through and meet all of her teachers at that orientation and kind of pretend like we were going through her day. Very impressed with the middle school. Speaking of the middle school, I wanted to go ahead and shout out Miss Blankenship for an awesome choir concert. We were there last week, the week before. What an awesome, fun thing. We got to bring some family from out of town to see that. My daughter had such a great time. It was very cool to see the artwork displayed from Mrs. Geist's class. We're very thankful for her as well. So after our short time here, I would say that it's no surprise at all that this school district is scoring so high, because this stuff doesn't happen by accident. And so I just want, and my wife wanted me to recognize the staff and the teachers, the administration, everybody that makes this possible, because I absolutely believe that you're working hard for our children, and your dedication is evident. So thank you so much. Finally, I wanted to say thank you to the school board for your leadership and your stewardship through these tumultuous times. I understand our world's changing, and it's changing fast. And so I know it must be extremely difficult for you all to navigate at times. And so thank you for fighting for our children. In closing, I just want to say we're very thankful for this district, to be part of this community. We feel so blessed to be able to raise our family here. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share. Go Eagles.
Next, Dr. Brenda Brenniger. Welcome, thanks for being here. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks for having me. My name is Meredith Brenner. I live in Bellbrook. The context for my remarks turns out are similar to those that Mr. Ferreira made. I'd like to reply to some of the comments that our current school board members have made on social media. Some mostly originated and some were comments on existing threads. I'll start by sharing now that I shared on social media, but not everybody's on Facebook, so I thought I'd share here. Books can be considered windows and mirrors. We need books featuring characters that reflect our situations. Mirrors. Mirrors help us to feel seen and valued. They foster self-acceptance. But mirrors aren't enough. We also benefit from books that feature people or situations that differ from ours. Windows. Windows foster empathy and compassion. All kids deserve access to a library with enough varieties of books to have equal windows and mirrors, including windows and mirrors for sexuality. I'm here tonight to emphasize that sexual content is a much broader term and is distinct from porn, or quote, hardcore pornographic acts that a member of our school board used. Sexual content in quality novels comes with context. It is not there purely to excite or to titillate, which is by definition porn. Rather, it is often used to illustrate the difficult situations our teens may find themselves in. What counts as sex? What does asking for and giving consent look like? What words would you use if you don't want to have sex? What does coerced consent look like? What happens if you've been assaulted? How do you process this emotionally? Will you be believed if you report it? What if alcohol is involved? So sex is complicated, far more complicated than the pornographic videos readily available on our phones. Novels help us unpack that complexity. I'll give an example that is fresh in my mind. Just a few days ago, I finished reading Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. It's a masterful retelling of David Copperfield, set in modern-day Appalachia. It won the 2023 Pulitzer Prize for fiction. And you know what? It had some sexual content when the main character was 17. I can assure you that the intent was not to titillate. Rather, the novel showed the decision-making process and consequences for a teen who faced a lifetime of trauma and was addicted to OxyContin. As a society, we often teach our kids simple truisms. Don't do drugs. Wait until marriage to have sex. Use protection. But more nuance is needed. Hopefully, parents are having these nuanced conversations. Because this isn't always the case, I'm glad we have a range of books in the library to help adolescents make sense of the time in their life when hormones are surging. Books can be a useful complement even when parents are initiating nuanced discussions, because sex is hard to talk about in our society. As a clinical psychologist who routinely works with adolescents and young adults, I may get a few more windows, to use my analogy, than most when it comes to sensitive topics. Teens don't always tell their parents if they are sexually active or if they've been assaulted. The teens have access to books. I trust that our librarians are selecting books with this complexity in mind and aren't buying books whose sole aim is to titillate. I'm not entirely sure I understand the alarm about sexual content in novels. Is it more fear-stoking in the culture wars, or is it something more? It may be worth mentioning the rates of teen sexual behavior and pregnancies have been steadily declining over the last several decades. Teens are also waiting until later to have sex for the first time. If you want more information on this, the CDC has a fabulous Youth First Peak Behavior Survey report that you can look up online. If parents want to restrict certain books, I fully support their putting holds on their children's accounts. What I don't want to see happen is the wholesale removal of books from our schools' libraries for contextualized sexual content under the guise of hardcore porn. I think the public complaints policy the board has proposed is a solid one. The only areas I suggest for improvement looks like it's been addressed. I'm just going to say that I hope that the board would have read the books in their entirety before voting to keep or remove, because excerpts are just not enough. But it sounds like that's been addressed, so thank you. I do strongly, however, recommend the removal of classroom or library books should be halted until we have a clear policy in place for how to handle public complaints. The old/current policy is partly outdated. It says public complaints should go to the county curriculum director, which doesn't exist anymore. And the new one says public complaints should go through a 4-tiered process. Any book that was removed on the basis of a public complaint would ultimately require a vote of the board, which has been mentioned. I do appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I hope you will take in the different views shared tonight, and that allowing for public input isn't simply performative. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Up next, I'd like to welcome Stephanie Vukovic. Welcome, thanks for being here. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm here to speak about libraries. You all know that I held one of our library positions, and it was a fantastic experience. Mr. Pereira touched on this. In our district, the library positions are classified. It's among the lowest paid positions in the district. And these fabulous employees who are doing this now are expected to do the job of the entire library system without any other support. So one of the things I really struggled with in this position was how isolated and alone I felt. And to combat that, I sought out professional development opportunities and went to several conferences. And one of them that I really valued was Scholastic's Reading Summit. I paid for that out of my pocket and traveled to Chicago during the summer. And I went and I learned, and the connections I made benefited our students. We had all-fair visits as a result of this at no cost to us because of relationships that I was able to foster. But one of the people that I met there was Pernille Rip. Pernille Rip is a middle school teacher, and she was a panelist there. She spoke about censoring books within schools and libraries. And at the time, I was thinking, man, that's not a problem where I am. Like, I don't have to worry about that. Like, we support readers. I'm going to read her words because I think that they summarize it better than anything I could come up with. So because they are her words, some of the language is a little bit different, and she's referring to her classroom library. But I think it translates to our district libraries. And she said, our classroom library spans age groups. It spans ability levels, and it spans topics that may not be suited for all, but are certainly suited for some. Because the students I teach deserve to have a library that will allow them to explore topics that matter to them. Because the students I teach deserve to have a library that will allow them to feel found. Because they deserve to have a library that is not based on what I think they need, but rather on the myriad of books that may bring topics into their lives that they need to learn about, that they may already know about, but no one else does. We teach children whose lives we can never imagine, who may go home to a life that looks nothing like the one we thought they had. We teach children who are curious by nature, whose curiosity may lead them down a path that is so destructive unless we find a way to warn them. We teach children who have so many questions about the bigger world, but no idea how to answer them. Books help us reach these children. Books may not work for all children, but may work for some. So when we censor the books we allow into our reading communities, we are telling some of our students that the story they live every day is not suitable for the rest of the class. That the life they lead is not meant to be discussed by us. That the experience they have had is so different, so hard, so awful, or so mature that we will not allow a fictional character to experience it along with them, to allow them to feel less alone, less scared, or less broken. So while we, of course, should read the books in our libraries, as there are books that are best suited for some age groups, we should do everything we can to make sure our library is for all the children we teach. That our library becomes a way for students to discuss and explore things they may not be exposed to yet, but that they should know about. That our libraries become opportunities for students to learn about other ideas, beliefs, or lives that may seem foreign from their own. Our job is never to censor, but always to educate. Make sure that your library is a place for all the children you teach, and not just those whose story matters to them. Another author that I got to meet and really respect is Kate Messner. And she said, when we say this book is inappropriate, we're telling those children that your situation, your family, your life is inappropriate. This is harmful. It directly hurts children, and that's not what we do here. I was really disheartened to see some of the remarks made by board members directed toward our staff members accusing them of circulating pornography. It's not acceptable in this district. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next is Jeff Josh. Thanks for being here. 5 minutes.
Thank you. Jeff Rush, Bellbrook, Ohio. My presentation just has a shorter. as other people describing, which is probably better for everybody. I want to talk a little bit about the pornography stuff. I'll start out by co-signing on everything Mr. Burr said. Thank you for that. When I brought a book home today, my 10-year-old and my 7-year-old ran back into their rooms and read it cover to cover. I was very excited. They came out to give their assessment. Daddy, there were 3 bad words in there. I worry about adults reading books that way. At 10 and 7, and I think the 10-year-old was kind of sandbagging a little bit, fine. But when we're calling literature pornography, what you're doing a couple of things. One, you're saying it has no literary merit, or according to the Supreme Court, it has no serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value whatsoever. Under Ohio law, you're saying that there's no purpose other than sexual use. But you're doing more than that. You're also accusing school librarians of distributing pornography. You're accusing them of felony. What are you doing? So it's one of those things that is a really reckless thing to say. And there better be something pretty significant to back it up, or it should be retracted immediately. There are also problems with other foreseeable things. When you start calling books pornography, when you start saying that this is a valueless book, when you start saying that distributing this book is a problem, you're hurting our children. Teachers start to say, what can I give to kids? What do I have to do? Can I submit a biology textbook that briefly talks about gender to a school board? It has a chilling effect on everything that happens in the school. And that too is something I consider a problem, something that I consider really reckless. And the other problem is what it takes away from kids. When you're starting to mention library books, the library shouldn't serve the lowest common denominator in schools. I am perfectly okay with Annie saying, I don't want my kids reading these books. That is not a problem. But when you're talking about what the library is offering, other kids might not only be ready for that, everybody who has read a book or a poem or listened to a song has at some point found something that connected to them, something that spoke to them in a way that maybe they hadn't experienced before. Maybe it connected them to somebody else whose experience they couldn't connect to before. And all of that is relevant. When we were looking at the masks and stay-at-home orders, the big complaints about that were, well, what about their social development? Kids are isolated, kids are alone. That's what taking away these makes sense. So I encourage, I think the policy looks sound. Honestly, I've been working like 12 hours a day, so I haven't had a chance to read it in full. But it looks like a good start. It looks like a good process. As you walk through that process, I encourage you to look at where the value in these books is before you rule too harshly. That's all I got. Thank you very much.
Next, I'd like to welcome Cassie Kipling. Welcome, thanks for being here. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Cassie Kipling and I live on McBee Road. I'm here tonight to talk to you about something different than books, and to talk about productive collaboration. This past year, the board has taken some very positive steps in the name of transparency, but at the same time, the extremely simple step has not been taken. I appreciate the fact that the board now provides the community with a very detailed set of board minutes from each board meeting. But I can't help but recognize these minutes are missing one very key piece of information. Trying to get up to speed at a board meeting, I have to sign a piece of paper with my name and what I'm going to talk about. None of this information is provided in the board minutes. This information is nowhere to be found, and I think it's extremely important that you have a record of who came to speak and what do we care about as a community. Acknowledging when the community speaks about a board meetings will go a long way in holding the board accountable by the community to ensure our concerns are documented. One very specific instance is the special board meeting that was called on January 31st, 2023. The document only mentions attendance, motion to move into executive session, and motion to adjourn. Several community members spoke that night, along with members of the administration from each of the district buildings. I appreciate the fact that the board records our meetings, but in the name of transparency and productive collaboration, I would like to request our board minutes be more complete by including the topics that the community comes to speak to you about. The board has also stated that they attempt to respond to all emails, yet I've heard from numerous teachers that they have expressed concerns that the board never responds to their emails. I recognize that current board policy may limit the ability for the board to respond directly to our staff's emails, but that's likely, and they likely forward them to the superintendent. My understanding is only the president of the SCA may address the board in board meetings. Our staff needs to feel that they have an avenue to address the board too, especially since not all staff belong to the teachers union. Many members of the community have asked multiple times about the proposed AP biology book, and we still have not received an update. My understanding is that we've only had 2 families express concerns about a section of the book that's not even taught. The proposed book is considered the gold standard for AP biology, and because 2 families have complained, the entire process has been put on hold. The community has requested multiple times for this topic to be addressed. Please add it to your agenda item for the next board meeting to give the community an update. Our librarians are amazing. Everyone's already addressed a lot of the same concerns I have about what was said online. I'm just gonna say, I trust our librarians. Thank you for the amazing job that you do. This past week, I attended a parent-teacher conference for my children. I didn't realize that class sizes increased from less than 20 in first grade to more than 25 in second grade. Using just the class sizes for my second grader, and these from first grade to second grade, she has an increase of 36% students in her class from last year to this year. Went from 19 to 26. It's a difference of 1 teacher. We heard our amazing school report card. I think in order to continue that growth, we need to look at adding an additional teacher in the elementaries, especially second grade. The class sizes changed 36% in a year. Our other districts in the surrounding area provide aids to their teachers when class sizes rise above 25 students to ensure that student-teacher ratios remain low. What are the district's plans to keep our student-teacher ratio from growing, especially with increased growth in the district? The relationship between the board, the community, and the staff has been extremely strained. The board needs to take positive steps to address the concerns of the community and staff. Please consider these additional steps that can be taken to address productive collaboration between the board, the community, and staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to welcome Brian Griffin. Welcome, thanks for being here. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Ryan Grummer, 104 Washington Hill Road. First thing I want to touch on is somebody messaged me this, and we have the highest student fees in our area. Centerville, much bigger than us, their student fees are per sport $225, up to $225, and there's a fee cap for the family of $563. And we're discussing raising IPE to $650. Where is all of the other fees going to? Like, if they're going to do cross country, you need a pair of shoes and some shorts and a shirt. If you're doing football, you're going to need a lot more than that. If you're doing IPE, you're going to need a lot more to do that. But we're all paying the same across the whole board, and yet some of us that have IPE students and marching band students are paying at like huge costs. So I just would hope that you guys look into that. Secondly, as far as the books go, I can honestly say that when I was a young man, when I was a teenager, 10, 11, 12, up to 15, 16, I wasn't going into books to find pornography. I was using my parents' computer or like whatever. Like, why would you ban something that's reading? It's all about trauma. That's what those books are about, is trauma. It's ridiculous. Like, anyways, we need to focus on relationships and caring for one another, bringing up those that are down, and building a closer community. And I'm afraid that politics have invaded our town, specifically our schools, in a way that will become corrupt. I've actively chosen to stay a route less politics. We have never had to ban books before, we've never removed the LGBTQ plus protections before, and we don't teach CRT and never will. Yet, because I disagreed with these notions, I'm labeled to be political. I don't believe I am. I believe that I'm just trying to state that my mind on how adding these non-issue political decisions in the school community is not fruitful, and that's what's being added here. Current and future board members must remember that this is an apolitical position. The job of a board member is meant to bring the community together through compromise and transparency. The job of a board member is supposed to be hiring the best education professionals and letting them do their job. The job of a board member is supposed to be regulating finances of the district so that we can continue to have successful schools. The job of a board member is to make sure that our district is legally protected. Micromanagement is not part of the job. Directing curriculum is not part of the job. Neither is hurting minorities, banning books, or bringing ideology. Not part of the job. We may identify as a conservative community. I understand that, however you may define it. But mark my words, times are shifting. I believe we're close to 50-50 than anyone on either side wants to believe. And it is the responsibility of our elected officials to bring together the community and unite them. Do better. Remove your ideology from the board. Remove your religion. Use a clear head. Come up with ideas that help all instead of hurt few, or empathy to unite all instead of creating a further divide. Why is the board trying to make such controversial changes? Since we have obviously crushing with 5 stars. But I want you on the board to put your laurels away. You didn't do that. It is the people like Ms. Gann and the rest of the district employees that did that. You should count your lucky stars that she is still here and many others are still here. In my mind, Ms. Gann, in my mind, is our shining gem in the middle of our school district. She's amazing. And the way that you guys treated her 9 months ago still shocks me to the core of this day. Finally, I would like to address another topic of unity. As much as some of you would like to claim that the board of faculty and the board-faculty relationship is amazing, I can assure you it's not. I don't speak for all of them, but I do speak for a lot. And they're scared of me. They don't feel heard by you. They are afraid of retaliation from you. For using either the First Amendment to make a decision, or to put a sign, or to say that they want to vote for somebody. They are scared to say that out loud for fear of you. So be better. Be something that makes our community proud and not divided.
Up next, I'd like to welcome Jenny Lake. Welcome, thank you for being here. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. I didn't intend on speaking tonight. I just first want to say I greatly appreciate Ms. Gann's presentation. It's very insightful, it's wonderful, and it's a very complex topic, the state report card. But I would like to ask that there is a deep dive into the special education category of the report card, particularly the students with disabilities. I think it's important that they are included in the presentation, and we do spend time doing that deep dive and share it with the community. I personally would like to understand it better, and I know that there are other parents like me that would also like to understand it. So if we could include that, I appreciate you so much. That would be so helpful for me, because if you go on ODE's website, it is like a foreign language. So I just would like to use her gifts to please explain it to the rest of the community and to myself. Just something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, to the end of our list, so that closes tonight's open communication period. And we move into the superintendent's report, number 7 on our agenda.
Yes, thank you. So, next part is a consent agenda, and so that consent agenda will be 7A, 7B, and 7C. So, 7A, we have a few resignations for the purpose of retirement of a few teachers and nurses at the end of the school year, and one at the end of the first semester here, and also approval of a supplemental duty contract and some supplemental duty volunteers. That's in 7A. 7B, recommended resignation of special needs assistant and one-year employment contracts of Cameron Blakely and Kelsey Knight, and then to substitute employment for so consent agenda 7A, B, and
Do we have a motion to accept tonight's consent agenda? So moved. Mr. Carpenter and Mrs. Anderson. Questions? And Mr. Lyman, please call the roll.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn,
Yes.
Mr. Kim.
Yes.
All right, moving on to 8A, additions, revisions to board policy. It was the first read at the last meeting, and this is a second and final read for approval of all the board policies that are on the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Carpenter and Mrs. Anderson. Questions?
A couple comments here. Clearly, we heard from the community this evening, varying opinions on books in our school system. The 130 in particular, which is specific to this topic, public comment, where it's been an expanded upon policy. I think the common thread for all the speakers this evening was age appropriateness. Does that exist? Does it have meaning? And 9130 itself touches on that. It says, the appropriateness of the material for the age and maturity level of the students with whom it is being used. So, and I believe a couple of speakers even either quoted an author or made a statement themselves, some acceptance that there is age appropriateness for books. And so, I think it's up for a fair discussion. One would involve media specialists, one would involve teachers, one that would involve the community, parents, administrators, to define something you're referring to in a policy that has nothing behind it other than saying age appropriateness. So it doesn't mean anything if we don't say what it is. And so some of the examples that were given tonight, I think, I find it interesting that some people would think it's okay, but, the particular quote, one quote that was mentioned, I will not mute it, I will say it like it's written. There was a guy named Carl Burns, and everyone called him CB. And one day, CB got so drunk at a party that he tried to fuck the dog. Okay? Is that really appropriate for an 11-year-old? Bestiality, excessive drinking, obviously some very profane language. So it seemed to me that there should be some ability to define what age appropriateness is. I think the important thing to keep in mind that children's books are not books written by children for children. They are books written by adults for children. I do not know what the intent of that author was when they write something like I just read to you. I have no idea. You can read the book. I did not interrupt you, so just keep it quiet like that. I learned recently, and I was actually quite surprised about this, that there has been a draft in work titled Selection Guidelines for Library Materials. I didn't know it existed until a public record request came in. So clearly, the people in the school system that have been working that somehow made it known to the community before I, as a board member, knew about it. And I find that rather interesting. But regardless, it did say as well, it said, all potential new and existing materials shall be age appropriate for the building in which the library is located. So I guess, my question is, and the board members, I think this would be a good thing to discuss here. age appropriateness. Does it have meaning? Should we just say it really doesn't matter, any book for any age, any media material for any age? Or can we as reasonable adults come to some type of consensus that there is a thing known or should be accepted as age appropriate? So you appreciate having comments with Ms. Zero.
I'll say for me, I do not feel informed enough or ready to make any comments at this time, just for me. So I realize you're talking about 9130. I would like to pass it as is, maybe give it a little bit of time.
I agree.
So,
I agree with you.
I didn't know if you were going to propose an amendment or something.
No.
So I was just, okay, yeah, I mean, whether that's a topic of future conversation or today, I'll just throw out there for me, I'm not ready to walk from the table on that topic right now.
I guess I should clarify. Yeah, I think the policy should go forward as it is.
Okay.
But that policy references age appropriateness. This draft document for selection of library materials, which again, I as a board member did not know about, but somehow the community knew about it. It refers to age appropriateness. So I think it merits a discussion, and that doesn't have to be rushed into. It doesn't have to be done next meeting. And it absolutely needs to involve our media specialists, our teachers, our parents, any person or entity that feels like they have a prerogative or a requirement essentially to be involved in this discussion. It really doesn't have to be contentious. We could have a committee involving a board member or one or two or whatever. But most pertinently, it has to involve our media specialists in parent representation, school administrators, and have just an adult civil discussion about material, such as was referenced tonight. Again, I go back to, and I think it's important to emphasize this, books for children are written by adults, with rare exceptions. I'm sure there are some that have been written by kids for kids. But for the most part, not. And so, when you go back to, and this is all gettable by public records request, so it's nothing secret here. May of last year, a parent brought up a concern about the book George. And you go, well, what's that about? I'll just read that to you here.
What grade was this that you're
And it was at BCI, third, fourth, and
Third, fourth, and fifth. So George knew it could be done. A boy could become a girl. She had since read on the internet that you could take girl hormones, and that would change your body. You could get a bunch of different surgeries if you wanted them and had the money. This was called transitioning. You could even start before you were 18 with pills called androgen blockers to stop the boy hormones already inside you from turning your body into penis. So basically, a book for a third grade, in this case a boy, telling him that he can have his penis and testicles removed, I think is up for discussion as to whether that's age appropriate. So anyhow, really what I'm going to say is I think we need to have a discussion to define, or at least discuss, age appropriateness. It should not stop this policy going forward tonight. One other thing here, and this is where we can benefit from the media specialist, and I'll confess some ignorance here. I did not know until literally 2 or 3 weeks ago that the folks that are media specialists, I assumed they were librarians, trained, educated, degree, and I just did not know. Someone brought that to my attention. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then tonight, Stephanie, you and others have pointed out that we classified some of the lowest paid people in the district. So I now have a new appreciation for that. And I think, and Dr. Pizza maybe can answer this question here, I don't think there's a formal training program or certification for media specialists. Is that correct? There's not like a prescribed method by which you are now christened a media specialist.
In the school district?
Sorry?
In the school district?
Or even within the state, I don't know. Okay, but within the school district, there's not. And I don't think that's fair for them. But we didn't create this construct, right? It exists across the state. So I think whatever we can do to help our media specialists to be better trained, equipped, knowledgeable to do their job is a win-win for everyone. So I think it's something we should look into. Perhaps there's some recommendations out there. Again, I would love to hear from media specialists about that. Stephanie, you mentioned that some of the training you've gone to at your own expense, and that's unfortunate. It shouldn't be that. So anyway, I think we should move forward on policy tonight. I would like to come back to the next board meeting and begin a discussion about how we can address and age appropriateness, and maybe we don't. Maybe that's not the consensus of the board here. It's just one-off on it. But the fact that we reference it in policy, the fact that we reference it in this draft document, I think it needs to have some teeth behind it as far as what does it mean. And then maybe we have less contention, over disagreements with respect to books and media that we find within our schools. So, my thoughts.
Any other comments before we take a vote? Okay, it has been moved and duly seconded to approve the additions, revisions to board policy as listed out here. Mr. Lyman, please call the roll.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes.
All right, 8B, 2023-24 school fees. There is only one change on here, that is to increase per recommendation of the IPE, which is the winter percussion, from $575 to $650.
We're ready for discussion.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Moore,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Anderson. Now there's time for discussion if people want.
Was this a recommendation from you as an administrator, or was it a recommendation from the people that run the program?
People that remember,
Okay, thank you.
you and Mr. Nick.
We heard tonight from the speaker talking about our fees. And obviously, I assume this would fall into that category, right? We're talking about not just sports fees, that person was referencing, but I guess the thing to keep in mind is that, yeah, we can lower fees, and maybe we should. But understand if we do that, it erodes, our revenue or our, you want to call it surplus, but over time, by the nature of school funding, it's going to erode anyhow. But I think it's a fair discussion. I know with our 6 kids, it was a challenge paying school fees going through the school system. Now they're only going up. So I think it's a worthwhile discussion. I think we should go forward, in my opinion. We should go forward with it tonight because, and then we can, as far as a more strategic discussion about what this could be. But I understand the burden it places upon people in our community, but I also understand that there's no quote-unquote free lunch here, and we are printing money, and so it comes at the expense of something else.
Just some clarification. So there are school instructional fees that go into the general fund and pay for consumables, those type of things. So that's student fees. And then there are sports fees. Those sports fees go to pay for uniforms for coaches, for entry fees into cross-country contests, those kind of things. Then there's band and music fees. Those band and music fees essentially go straight to, and I don't want to say in this lock box over here for just IPE or marching band. They're kind of in their own set over here. So that's why those fees are much more expensive than the other ones, because they're kind of in their own little area over here. And so those fees pay for all the extra volunteers that they have, or pays for the music that they're getting, or the instructional or the drill they're getting. So they are paying for those kind of things by themselves. So that's why There is some subsidizing from the school district on that, but those things are much more expensive compared to some other things.
And they always have this, and when I was a band, I mean, they weren't this, but, they were.
Right, and I would say that's not unique to us
No.
at all. That is the norm throughout the state, the region. I mean, I don't want to speak too broadly, but the state and the region, definitely, that's just how those things are done.
But on this fee schedule, is that the only fee that's changing from year to year? Or
No.
is it just,
So this was approved in
Right.
March, April, May, I'm not
Right.
quite sure, in the spring sometime, so from that approval,
Right.
the only thing that has changed is the indoor production.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's in red on page 3 of those fees, yep. That's the only thing that's changed.
Other questions? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Mr. Lyman, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson.
yes,
All right, recommend out-of-state travel, recommend approval of out-of-state travel for high school senior music students in New York City, New York, May 9th to 12th, 2024, for cultural risk enrichment. Cost of district includes substitute teachers.
so moved?
Second.
Mrs. Anderson and Mrs. Dorr.
Again, this is the annual trip for those students that I believe the requirement for many others is to have been in music experience each of their 4 years, and this happens this spring.
It's a great opportunity for our students, really.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Dorn,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes,
Mr. Carpenter.
Yes.
Next, recommend acceptance of donation with gratitude, $1,000 towards Bellbrook Intermediate Veterans Day Breakfast from Bellbrook-Sugar Maple Festival.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Carpenter and then Mrs. Dorr. Really appreciate it.
Again, huge thanks to the Sugar Maple Festival for their donation. The Veterans Day Breakfast is coming up next Thursday, the 9th instead of, because we have a PD Day on the 10th and the 11th is on a Saturday. It's always a very good experience. Mr. Phelps and DCI did a fantastic job. They're great teachers, did a fantastic job.
Mr. Lyman, please call the roll on accepting with gratitude.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
yes,
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn.
Yes.
No, sir. All right. Any other items of discussion before we move here?
I'd like to say something.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna just say a few words because there wasn't any, I didn't want to speak to this during the policy section because I have no issue or question about the policies as we pass them. But, the last couple of weeks have been an exercise in restraint. I've done being restrained, so I'd like to speak for a moment. if I could. Some people might think this is a position of power. It is actually one of the most helpless feelings I've ever felt. The amount of restraint required to do this job is, in that sense, something I did not expect. People rarely come here, and I thank you, sir. People rarely come here to say nice things about our district, and there are so many things to say. But people do stand here and regularly imply that we are breaking the law. That we are, because we might, and you can look up online what primary we vote in, that we are somehow single-minded, despite the fact that this board, I think, has had split votes more than any board in recent past. We are on one hand accused of being anti-teacher and having a horrible relationship with our teachers, while another significant portion of our community accuses us of being the lapdogs of the teachers union. Because we have, that very much feels like we can't win sometimes. We've heard a lot about posting online. And I don't know who's listening to this, but there do need to be some actions taken on behalf of individuals here present in this entire room about restraint when posting online. But I'd like to say a few things about when people are reading what they see online. Because when someone posts about the work of a staff member or about what is going on in one of these schools, that staff member cannot defend themselves. It would be unprofessional to do so, and in some cases against policy. When you see an individual online speaking about an experience that their student had at school today, and they are railing on a teacher, or they're railing on a principal, or they're throwing spears at Dr. Kozad, those individuals cannot address that because those staff members cannot discuss that individual student. So understand that you are hearing one side of the story. And if an individual board member posts something on social media, and that is certainly going to happen during campaign season, we may have differing opinions as to whether it should happen otherwise. But when an individual board member posts something on social media, they do not speak for the board. Additionally, the other board members cannot or should not respond because it would constitute us discussing school business in public outside of a school meeting. So please don't take the First Amendment rights of an individual one of us, and we are all also citizens in this community, to indicate that that is the way the board feels, or even that topic is something that the board has discussed, is a priority, or something that is even on our plate, because that is not necessarily true. So I would just conclude with Facebook is the devil, and we would all be a lot better off without it. I'll leave it at that.
Having been on the board for just about 8 years now, I concur that you are you're in a very difficult spot to be able to respond to accusations and comments of others that you have no control over. And so I appreciate that a lot. A lot of that factored into choosing not to run again. I'm finishing up my second term, and there's only been a short amount of that time when it was fun being on the school. And the rest of the time, you are the demon in the room to a lot of people. And it's public service to be in this position, to carefully consider the issues that are put in front of you, and to make the decision, the best decision you can make. And you know that you're not going to please everybody. It's difficult to be demonized because of it. So I might be back again sometime. I'm going to take at least 2 years off. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Please call the roll. Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsler?
Yes. We are adjourned at 9:19. Thank you very much for coming.